Hi, I'm Marcel James, and today I'm going to show you how to prepare your mix down for mastering. Whether you're sending it out to a mastering engineer or you're mastering it yourself, these guidelines are going to help you get a better end result. I'm going to switch over to the screenshot view. Now, I'm showing you a project in Logic, but these rules apply to any DAW. So however you're working, you're going to want to follow these guidelines. If you look here, this is my master fader, and right here on the meter, I hit the red. So the reason that's red is I turned off all the mastering plugins and I just played the song through. And the loudest peak is a dB, 1.1 dB, over full scale, so it clipped. And that's going to be a nasty result when you're dealing with digital. You don't have that give and take as you do with analog. As many of you probably know that. So once you clip, if you put a limiter on that, yeah, you're going to protect that. You're going to have some protection so that you don't peak. But we don't want plugins on our master bus if we're sending something off to mastering or if we're going to master it separately from mixing. Matter of fact, I'd even ask you not to put compressors or any widening processing, and just send a reference track and say, I want it to sound like this reference track. And whether it's width, loudness, or even say, I like the width of this master of this reference track, and I like the loudness of this master, I like the punch of this. You could send 2 or 3 reference tracks. You really can't have too much to go by pretty much. I've had people send me, and now this is extreme, but I've had people send me folders of just song after song after song after song. And this is what I'm going for. And I have to go, oh my gosh. So I have to pick 3 or 4 that are similar to what I'm working on. But the bottom line is, yeah, we don't want that to clip. Now there's a couple ways I can get that to stop going red. If I've bounced everything to buses, I could turn the buses down. In this project, I only have 1 vocal bus and everything else I would turn on individually. For the sake of this demo, the other easy way is just to go like something like -3. The reason I would go -3 is that's just a single clip that went that loud, 1 dB. Most of it was hovering right around 0, which means I really only need to come down 3 dB to get most of my stuff at the loudest peaks around -3. The sweet spot for a mix down is is to have your peaks hovering somewhere in between -3 and -6. Maybe -7, depending on how much dynamic range you've left on your tracks. To give you a better idea, I'm going to zoom in to this mixdown. Now this is the mixdown with -3. Now before I get too much into this, and this is how the audio waveform should work, and I'm going to tell you what to look for on your waveform. So you should take a look at your waveforms before you send your mix down to the mastering guy, because the first thing that he's going to do is open it, and he's going to see a lot from these waveforms. So you should police your waveforms first before sending it out. But before I get to that, I want to talk a little bit about this -3 thing. Now, ideally, I would rather turn down the tracks, and personally, I would turn down the tracks because once I instantiate this fader, in other words, it's a plugin, it's an attenuation plugin. Once I leave 0, if I stay at 0, it's not doing anything. But once I start turning it down, I'm instantiating attenuation processing, okay, on the final fader. Yes, it's 24-bit, it's 48-bit floating point resolution, actually 64-bit, sorry, I went from 32 to 64 recently. So you're at 64-bit floating point, math. You have plenty of headroom to move things around. In my experience, it's better to leave that master fader at 0 because it is instantiating attenuation on your whole mix at that point. I'd rather turn down the individual parts. I know that's more work, but one reason I want to show this to you is so that you can do this as you're mixing. For example, if you're working in EDM or anything pop-based where your kick drum is driving the song, you want to go to your kick drum and make sure that those levels are hitting somewhere between -7, -9. There are some arguments for a specific number, but it depends on how loud you're mixing your track around your kick drum. So you kind of have to have a little trial and error to see how you like to work. But you definitely want lots of headroom, lots of room above that kick drum volume, and then you start opening up tracks from there, and you'll see this overall level go hotter and hotter. And if it gets into the red, go back to your kick drum, lower that, and then start turning on the other sounds again, and find that sweet spot so that you're not clipping without any plugins. Now, why don't I want, okay, you understand why I want to work from 0 if possible, but why do I not want any plugins on the mixdown if possible on the 2 bus? I know that you're going to do things on your bus, on your stems, on your buses, like your bass bus and your vocal bus. I know you're going to probably have processing there typically. You don't want to put too much. You don't want so much processing. Let's zoom into this waveform. You don't want so much processing here that there's no life between this RMS level. This is the main volume level where it never really dips anymore. That's a steady volume level, and your peaks. Now that's a nice differential. I don't know exactly how many dBs that is. Somebody who looks at waveforms more often could probably just name it. It might be 6, might be 5, but it's a nice differential between your RMS and your peak level. And then I've got some air now above that. That's what we want. We want space. We don't want these to get lopped off right here, these peaks. And we want some space between the RMS and this. And the reason is, if you run everything through compressors and max up this energy, and you say, oh, I got headroom, but everything's white, for example, here, or very light colored, you basically left me no dynamics to work with, because for me, dynamics are from the peak to the RMS. That's the punch. And I need that to work with when I'm mastering, and any great mastering, any good mastering engineer is going to need that, because he's going to approach this file much differently than the typical mix guy or the producer is, and that's why he spent so much time learning to master. I use anywhere from 10 to 15 processors. I call it multi-layered processing when I'm mastering a track, so that I'm not too heavy-handed with any one process. I don't want to impart the sound of any one processor. I want my sound to be a collage of very finessed usage of many processors that are all used judiciously, very carefully and for a specific reason. And then by the end of it, everything is loud, clean, and still punchy. That's the result, and wide. And many times I don't have to add much artificial widening, because I've preserved things. If you squash your mix with 1 or 2 plugins and you treat it very heavy-handedly, suddenly your stereo image starts to scrunch down, because those processors are trying to do too much. But when you layer the processes, if you're careful and you designed a nice stack of processors, then you can end up with a nice sound that's still wide. So you haven't diminished the wide, so you don't have to artificially inflate that width. So that's the reason why we want a waveform that looks alive like this. Now I've got another waveform here that is hidden. I'll open that up. This is what I get many times. There's headroom, because there's that 3 dB from the peaks, and there's some space in between, but look at how it's all, basically pancaked on the top and the bottom of the waveform. That's because I put a limiter on the plugin and just, set it at -5, and that's a valid mix down, and that is sent out many times. But I'm telling you, the one on top, I can make sound a lot more natural, and a lot better, and a lot closer. I can shape it to the reference that you sent me a lot more easily than this file down here on the bottom. So before I get into too much more, because that's essentially a big part of it, I'm going to play you this track that I worked on right here, the mix down that you're looking at, and then a clip of the master. So I'll do that now.
Just words, with no replies, just words, no reasons why, just words. Better not answer, someone's calling. Just words, with no replies, just words, no reasons why, just words. Better not answer, someone's call.
Okay, so you got an idea of the song. I played you a little clip. It's kind of an Easter egg, but at the end of this video, I'm going to go ahead and put the whole song. It's 80% done. It's not all the way done. So I didn't want to just release it, but I thought it'd be a fun way to put it on the end of this video for guys that, might like the music. So look for that at the end of the video, the full words. That's a project of mine called Profits on TV. Okay, so the other things you want to keep in mind when you're preparing a mix. Yeah, I like 24-bit. There's really no reason to send 32-bit files. 24-bit is plenty of bit depth, and I'm just going to convert it to 20. I'm going to convert it to 24 if you send me 32 anyway, because I mostly work in Logic, and there's no point in 32. There's no sonic advantage to working in 32, and nothing's deliverable in 32. It's all going to be delivered in 24. So I work in 24. Or 16. You tell me what you need. You need 16, I'll dither it here in a way that's 16 that's going to sound very, very good for 16. It's going to sound better than if we just worked in 16. If we start from 24, go to 16. So the one thing I want to talk about is this artificial, for mixing, mixing, stereo mixing. This is something else that I ran into quite a bit. People putting too much artificial, widening on like everything, and then I get this mix. It's just like, but it basically, you're ripping the phase apart when you put these artificial stereo wideners in. So it's better to pan, and when you pan, try not to always hard pan. So a hard pan is I just pan something to the right, pan something to the left. Leave some low energy in the center. So like send another send somewhere, and then put a filter on that and leave some low energy in the middle, in mono, in the center. So you're panning everything above a certain frequency, but the low energy remains chord in the middle. You can get away with a lot more panning that way without making things sound weird and disjointed. It kind of glues everything together if you follow that. Another thing you can do is add some reverb. And maybe filter that off of the top. So and leave the reverbed monoed or from the center. Don't pan the reverbed, and then just pan the sound, and then the reverb fills the rest of the space. So there's a couple different tricks you could do for panning to get some width. Making things too wide is fun on the headphones, but if they play your song in any live venue and it's just panned weirdly, no matter how good the mastering is, the guys on that side of the room, if it's a stereo club or a stereo live performance, they're going to hear some things that the guys on the other side of the room aren't going to hear, and that just can sometimes be weird. But if you pan like I told you, at least the energy's still going to be there from those sounds that were panned. So it sort of helps compensate for that. You'll at least hear some of that sound, and it'll still keep the mix mostly intact, I guess. From a feeling standpoint, it won't get so disjointed. So that's basically a lot. The other thing that I do want to cover is setting your levels. So this is this is an important point, because if you've mixed the song, created the song through all these 2-bus processors, and you turn them all off, it no longer sounds like what you wanted. And even after I master it, it may not sound like what you wanted. And then you're going to go, oh, I should turn those back on. No, what you should do is turn the level down to the lowest point, either on your speakers or your headphones, and mix your levels again without the processing on it, without your 2-bus processing. Mix it again at the lowest level you can when you can still hear everything. So you really want to be 70 dBs maybe, or even lower. You want to be very low when you mix your levels. Everything else can be kind of loud, or you get the client in. I know you want to boost it up. He wants to sit on the client couch and hears music super loud and banging. But trust me, when you're mixing levels, okay, we're not talking about necessarily even like, the track in general as far as the energy goes of the track. We're talking about how loud individual sounds should be, mostly levels. And that can sometimes be EQ for sure too, because EQ is essentially frequency-based leveling. But what you want to do is listen really low, and that's going to allow you to create a mix that is dynamic. So you're going to send it to me, but still intact. Use your automation. Bring things up when they dip down too low. If everything sounds good for a while and then suddenly something sounds too low, automate that up. Certainly you're going to be doing this with vocals. I can guarantee you, if you turn off everything on your tube bus, you're not going to want to compress everything on your vocal chain to get leveling that way. You're going to notice that it sounds too compressed on your vocal when you turn everything else off. It's like, my vocal sounds too compressed. Well, all right, turn some of that compression down, ease up on the threshold, ease up on that attack release, and then go in and level it by hand, automate some of those words. You're gonna get a much more natural sounding vocal. It's less harsh, easier again to master, easier to mix, frankly, and easier to master. This is an easy way to mix when you train yourself to do this. When you train yourself to turn it down, it's great for doing kick drums and vocals. These are two things notoriously hard to get the levels right on in a track. Kick's either too loud, too soft, over and over again. But if you turn the levels down, turn off your tube bus processing, you're going to lower that kick and you're going to get it in the sweet spot. You're going to, and I think you hear it in the song that I'm playing you. You're going to get that vocal right. I think you hear that in the song I'm playing. It's the reason I want to play you a song. Because I want to show you that this is how I did this. That, I turned everything off and I mixed my levels and I set everything, and then I turned everything on. And it was so much better because I was able to address the nuance of the leveling of the mix. So I really hope this helps. If you like this video, I've heard this so many times, so please do it. Subscribe, click the notification. And even as important, share this. Sharing is caring, so we all want to care for each other in these times, in these dire times that are getting better. We're going to have fun in 21. Things are getting better out there. Please do share this video. I hope you liked it. Check back soon. And if you like the song at the end, or if you like these tips, or if you have any questions, leave a comment. Good, bad. You like the song, didn't like the song, but you like the information, whatever it is. Thanks for watching. I'll be back and hang out next. I'm going to play you the rest of the New Prophets on TV song right now. Thanks a lot.
It's not a crime to search inside your mind, the consciousness divine between the words, so misleading it's absurd. It makes sense to live this life immense, the largeness, no offense. You've got to live and learn, but where do you turn when the message burns? Just words, with no replies. Just words, no reasons why. Just words. Better not answer someone's calling. Just words, no refrains. Just words. Always the same, just words. Don't look now, the sky is falling down. What's in a sound? The mind and soul confound. Confusion will abound. It's a lot like abuse. The war is lost and we don't have a truce. One day, a prophecy to obey will sweep our world away. There's a lonely truth, the meaning hides till you find the proof. Just one